Glory to Pompey. Always. It's a short video, 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And I got attracted by it, and I thought, I want to look into this because the title is The Lazy Method That Got Me Fluent Insanely Fast. He's got a lot of views in 2 months, and the thumbnail says I got fluent too fast. So it's a little clickbaity, but I don't judge a book from its cover because that's what usually my detractors do to me. I'm going to watch it because it's either one or two things. Either it's one of those videos where the guy is just going to try and sell you something and tell you, yeah, you can become fluent in 3 weeks with my powerful method. In 3 days, you'll be fluent. Just give me money. If it's that, then I'll call him out. But instead, if it's a situation where the method is legit, as someone who has put over 10 years into both the learning and teaching of languages, I'll say, you've seen this guy's video? Well, let's have a look. I haven't, so maybe he's good. Or maybe not. Without further ado, Muppets. Let's check him out. All right, I love his setup, though. I love the dragon in the back. Very nice.
What if everything you've been taught about learning a language is completely backwards? Today, I can use Chinese to navigate complex business discussions. And
oh, Chinese speaker. A fellow Chinese speaker. That's nice. Now I see why he's got the long in the background. That's really nice.
I did it using a method so counterintuitive that experts might even call it lazy. I used to be that person with color-coded notebooks, subscription applications, and weekend study intensives. I would block out 2 to 3 hours for rigorous daily study sessions, determined to master Mandarin through sheer discipline and willpower. But 6 months in, despite my dedication, I could barely string basic sentences together.
Okay, so up to this point, so far so good. First 34 seconds, no nonsense. It is true that unfortunately when you go the traditional method of learning a language, oftentimes you're not doing it right. Like you sit down, you read the book, you don't speak, you don't say a word, and yeah, that's not great. Or you just read something and try to memorize a list. It just doesn't work. It's not natural. It's not how we learn our first languages in the first place. So I agree with him. With that being said, he said after 6 months, I could barely string a sentence together. That's not uncommon, though, with a language like Mandarin. If you spend 6 months in the country with a little bit of a basis, then I think you'll get to at least lower conversational, mildly conversational, at least, if you have a good basis. But if you start from absolute zero, kind of depends. But I mean, 6 months, it's going to take some time. Quite a bit of that time will be spent just to learn the tones. But sure, cool. 非常好，很好玩。
Pronunciation felt unnatural. I could barely string basic sentences together. The pronunciation felt unnatural. The vocabulary wouldn't stick. And worst of all, maybe, I started translating everything in my head before I actually started speaking. And this, of course, would create that awkward delay that would make conversations painful to have and probably painful to listen to. Now,
yeah, he's absolutely right with that. As I say, I'll tell it how it is. I never think, like now I'm having a live stream in English, my second language. It's not like I'm thinking in Italian and translating. You can't do that, particularly as someone who used to work in international translation and simultaneous interpretation. You have to think in the language, so very good.
Now, as Chief Operating Officer of a growing e-commerce company, I am obsessed with efficiency. And so one day it hit me. What if my approach to learning languages was fundamentally inefficient? I mean, what if all of this structured studying was actually the problem and not the solution?
What books has he got? Let me see.
I mean, what?
Mandarin Chinese. Does he have Hanyu Jiaocheng? That's the one that I used. He's got a book for Italian. The one I used at the at my university. No, I don't see it.
What if all of this structured studying was actually the problem and not the solution? This question sent me down a neuro-linguistic rabbit hole that I became obsessed with, and it ended up totally changing the way I approached studying languages.
Sure.
I'm about to share something with you that might sound ridiculous at first, but I promise you it's backed by cutting-edge brain linguistic science that has helped thousands of learners who might be stuck just like you finally have a breakthrough. I call it the neurological alignment method, although a lot of my friends just call it the lazy way of mastering languages. It's designed to work in harmony with your brain's natural processes.
Okay, that's a good start. You like Mandarin? Me too. Yeah. It's a nice sounding language. Absolutely. It's interesting because I heard like we say Mandarin. You can also say Chinese, but Mandarin is more descriptive since Cantonese is also Chinese, but they're not mutually intelligible. Regardless, what's interesting about that is that if I had to translate Mandarin in Mandarin, I would say 普通话, which means the common language. But then again, not all Mandarin is 普通话. So, yeah, no, actually, that's not a good translation. Maybe the one they use is Hanyu. Probably that's the best way to translate it. So the language of the Han, so the people, the ethnicity, Hanyu would be the best way to translate Mandarin. Because 普通话 is just the most standard version of Mandarin, which is based on Beijing Hua, so the Beijing accent and language, but not exactly the same. Beijing goes nuts with the Hua when they sound. Standard Mandarin does as well have that sound, but it's not like as overly used as Beijing Hua. Otherwise, I've seen some Chinese say 中文, but technically that's just a written language. But Chinese people, unless they're like in academia, they will use it to just mean, yeah, Chinese, the language.
Rather than just fighting against them. Now, before I explain the core techniques, you need to first understand why the traditional methods simply don't work. Our brains actually aren't designed to learn languages by memorizing grammar rules or studying vocabulary lists. Think
absolutely right.
For a second about how you learned your native tongue. Did anyone...
Goatee asks, is Cantonese a form of Mandarin or technically a completely different language? No, it's not a form of Mandarin. They are both Chinese, but I personally don't like calling all of the languages spoken in that area Chinese, because it would be kind of the same as saying Italian and French and Spanish are all forms of European. It's kind of weird, because the distance between, say, Beijing and Xianggang, so would be Hong Kong. That's how you say it in Mandarin, by the way. It means the port of perfumes, Xianggang, Hong Kong. And yeah, the geographic distance is massive. They have different cultures. They have different food. They sound different. They're not mutually intelligible. People in Hong Kong and the Canton area usually do study Mandarin at school, but it's a bit like an Italian studies English at school. It's still very distant, and I'm not a native, right, of English. But yeah, so no, they're not, definitely not. Cantonese is its own language, just like Mandarin is its own language. I find Mandarin sounds more beautiful to me than Cantonese, but I like Cantonese, and Cantonese is objectively more difficult because it has more tones than Mandarin.
Drill you on conjugation tables as a toddler? Of course not. You absorbed language naturally through meaningful contexts that had some relevance to you and your life. Now, neuroscience reveals that languages are stored in your memory in the procedural part of the brain. And it turns out that this is the same neurological system that helps us with riding a bike or with typing on a keyboard. Now, traditional studying methods when it comes to learning a language targets what's called declarative memory.
This guy's based. So question. My uncle's wife is from Guangzhou. Do they speak Mandarin or Cantonese? Cantonese. Because in fact, when you say Canton, this is an interesting one. When you say Canton in English, it's a rough approximation of a specific region that has that name. And if I don't know how to say it in Cantonese, but in Mandarin, you have the region of Guangdong and then the city of Guangzhou. What's funny is that there was actually a misunderstanding between medieval Europeans and Chinese. And so when we say Canton, usually we mean the city, but the city is Guangzhou. And again, if I'm right, and Guangdong is more the region. So Canton is actually the region, even though we use it to mean the city, whatever. Regardless of the mistakes of the past, of Marco Polo and whatnot. What's interesting is that, yeah, so it's Canton. Basically, she's from the Canton region, so she speaks Cantonese. Yeah, so Mandarin is spoken from the north with its own specific varieties that, as I say, one of the characteristic sound is the Hua. So a lot of words will have this sound at the end, a bit like American English, if you will. This sound goes away already when you reach like Shanghai. They don't use that sound. And then if you go into the south, that sound is mostly gone. You have it for sounds like number 2, I guess. But in general, you won't find it. And you go all the way down to Sichuan. It's I think one of the southernmost areas. But then all of the areas that you have in, like, as I say, in the Canton region, Hong Kong, so the island. No, that's all Cantonese. But Mandarin is widely spoken. It has over 1 billion speakers. It's so it is the one language you want to learn if you want to learn an Asian language and you don't have a personal cultural preference. So if you like Japanese because you like anime, then learn Japanese. But this is the one that really, Mandarin allows you to communicate with so many different cities like Xi'an, as I say, Shanghai, Beijing, and all those areas. It's just that the north has that sound. And also another characteristic is that when you see transliterated the SH in the northern variety of Mandarin, it sounds like a sh. In the southern variety of Mandarin, it's simplified into a s. So like the verb 是 我是 I am becomes 我是 if you go in the south, but it's not like too strange. But then it also means that sounds like Shanghai, so above the sea. That's what it means. Shang is above and Hai is the sea, the city of Shanghai. In a southern accent becomes Sang instead of Shang, so it can be difficult to recognize sometimes. I personally like the standard Mandarin, is my favorite. And my professors at university, they were all from Beijing. So I heard a lot of Arhua, like a lot. And yeah, that's how it is.
Now, it's really great for memorizing facts or figures or something like that, but it's absolutely terrible when it comes to helping you develop an automatic skill.
Absolutely.
So, what's the alternative? Something so enjoyable, you're going to question whether or not it's actually effective. Something you're probably already doing every single day without truly realizing its potential. Television. Yes. Really. But not just any passive watching whatever the heck happens to be on the television. This is a strategic visual approach to taking regular entertainment and transforming it into the most powerful of language acquisition tools. Now, I'm just gonna say it, this isn't about zoning out to foreign films with your native tongue subtitles on the TV. It's about creating a deliberate experience that...
Okay, so yeah, no, this is a legit, it is one of the techniques that I used. So absolutely, it's legitimate. Is it the most powerful learning tool? No, I disagree. The most powerful learning tool is actually speaking with natives. But of course, a lot of people don't have that luxury. And so it is very good to watch a movie in the, like I watched so many movies in English, and I picked up a lot of pronunciation, a lot of vocabulary that way. I wouldn't consider it the ultimate secret study that you just do this, you just watch TV, but use it as a methodically and then you become fluent. If that's his position, I slightly disagree. But it is very effective. I'll give him that. So absolutely.
Mimics how your brain naturally acquires a language. So in that sense, I guess you could call it strategic entertainment immersion. The magic...
Or just watching TV.
happens because visual storytelling provides rich contextual cues that help your brain naturally map meaning to new sounds and patterns. Your neurological language centers activate automatically when meaning is clear, even without understanding every single word. I transformed my Mandarin speaking and listening ability just by watching a couple of hours of TV every single day, which...
No problem, Lady Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, no. As I say, it's a legit method. So at least I'm happy that this is not like, this guy seems legit. He knows what he's talking about. Is he overselling it a little bit? Yes, but it is a very objectively efficient way to study. When you like watch movies, pause, take your time, review the pronunciation, look at the situation in context. Definitely much better than taking a list of words, which I've never done in my life. Take a list of words and just repeat book, pen, pig, controller, microphone, Muppet. Like, I've never done that in my life. Yeah, so sure, it's better because you see the context, the people are fighting and arguing, one points to the car, and then they say the word for car, like in Chinese, for instance, 这是我的车, this is my car. Imagine that they say that, and then you see the contextual cues that help you understand it, and also maybe if it's it's a good movie that you like, or even a video game, to be honest. I do this with Skyrim. I'll show you what I'm talking about, but when I play Skyrim, sometimes I swap, and I just describe everything as I play, because that way I can retain the vocabulary, because I'm playing a game I like. So no, I agree with him. It's a good video so far. It's a good video.
By the way, I already did before, it just wasn't in Mandarin. And again, this wasn't a replacement for studying. This was studying. This was my primary study method, and the results were astonishing. The content selection is critical and has to follow the comprehension 80-20 rule. Start with content that you understand about 80% of, either through the visuals on the screen, the context that's provided to you, or something to do with the motions maybe that the person is using on screen. This creates the perfect zone where your brain is able to infer meaning without getting frustrated about...
Yeah, what I used to do in Japan is that I would go to the library and find CDs and books that were used by children. and progressively go through the stages that a native goes through. And when it's children's media, it's very simple. They're using vocabulary that is easy to understand. So if you're a beginner or even a lower intermediate, it's a good way to build up that vocabulary that we naturally learn as kids, and then progressively get harder and harder until you end up watching a thriller and you understand terminology that is not only obviously apt for everyday adult life, but you can even end up learning some technical terms if you're passionate about it. So yeah, no, I agree. Good point.
Not understanding the peripheral things. For example, begin especially with content designed for either beginners or for children.
There we go.
Mini stories with repetitive structures, simplified news programs for language learners, or
Yeah.
children's shows with very visual storytelling.
Sure, yeah.
Then after that, you can gradually progress to the following: teen dramas with straightforward plots, documentary series on already familiar topics, or competition shows where actions are clearly tied to dialogue. For example, for me with Mandarin, I started with very basic content.
Oh, I know her. I know her. Actually, she's one of the channels that I watched a lot when I was like really focusing on my Mandarin. So yeah, she's good. Learn Chinese easily and effortlessly. Yeah, this is always, yeah, you need effort, for crying out loud. I like her, but the title, yeah, Shuo Chinese. She's fantastic though. So I'm gonna give her a pass for the title. I understand it. Hate the game, not the player. But do keep in mind, all language learning requires effort and time. There is no magic pill, no method that will remove these two constituents from the equation. With that being said, it is also true that if you are highly tactical, strategic, and you optimize your study time with technique and proper, if you do it right, then yeah, it will be a lot easier and you will actually get results a lot faster. So I agree with that, but she's great.
Aimed at beginners. And eventually I was able to graduate to more complex content that actually aligned with my personal interests.
Good.
Now, there are two ways to implement this technique: active immersion and passive immersion. Active viewing, as you can probably guess, means giving your complete undivided attention to the content. I'm talking about no phone scrolling, no multitasking, no distractions from other devices or notifications, full mental engagement on what you're studying. Now, passive immersion is also very valuable, but
你忘了你的手机. This is a 手机 in Chinese. No 手机 allowed.
solves a different neurological purpose. This is where you allow content to play in the background while you're working out or cooking or commuting
Okay.
or doing any other activity. This
Yeah.
allows your brain to continue to process the patterns of the language, although subconsciously. And just a quick
Absolutely.
note, sorry, it doesn't work while you're sleeping. Anyway,
Absolutely. Okay, yeah, no, the guy's based. I like the guy. He's good. The information is good. It's a little oversold, but then again, he said he's some kind of CEO of a business, so I understand. I can respect that as long as the information is correct. I don't have a problem with the delivery method. You do you. And I think it's very good. Absolutely. Yes. The idea, this nonsense that you can sleep and play the language, you know what's that going to do? It's not going to let you learn the language magically. Wake up and you start speaking like, 你好,明天你要去北京参观. Like, not going to happen. What's going to happen is that you're not going to have a good night of sleep. That's what's going to happen. So, yeah. Not a good idea.
the real breakthrough came for me when I combined these two approaches. I would actively watch new content and then replay it several times while doing other things.
Absolutely.
This repeated exposure cemented the patterns of the language in my brain without needing to add extra time to studying. Now, here's where my approach becomes truly controversial. I recommend minimal speaking, that means minimal output practice, until you've accumulated about 300 or so hours of quality input time.
I completely disagree. Fluency formula. That's the only thing I disagree with. So still, fantastic. Happy to talk about it, by the way. But in my personal experience, when I picked up English, when I picked up Japanese, reached fluency with it. When I picked up Mandarin, got conversational, not fluent though, yet. Whatever language it was, French, Spanish, in my experience, I always speak. Now, it's also possible that I'm misunderstanding him. So I don't want to strawman the man. I'm going to try and stillman him instead. So let's say that instead, when he says minimal to no speaking until you reach, maybe he means, what could he mean? Perhaps he's not actually talking about the idea of speak, because you have to. If you just listen, if you listen, you have to repeat, because you have to build a muscle memory. And also by saying something, even if you tell someone about it, like imagine that today you're learning the Italian word mangiare, to eat, okay? A good way to remember that, or even like the word pane for bread, is to go and tell someone. Just go to someone and tell them, did you know that in Italian bread is pane, and or latte is milk? Just milk, not the coffee with milk. Latte is just milk. Whatever it is, I don't know. Telefono, well, we say smartphone now. Whatever it is, Muppet. Muppet in Italian is Muppet. Maschera. Okay, this is a maschera. So you can go and tell someone, and that's actually a good way to remember it, believe it or not. But in general, I disagree with the idea of you have to start speaking from the very beginning. He's going to try and debunk that now, I imagine, but I agree with that. It's just that it has nuances. So I don't want to say that I necessarily disagree, because as an answer, if he tells me, well, yeah, but before you speak, you need to make sure that what you're saying is correct. Otherwise, you might end up learning something in a way that is wrong, and then you have to deconstruct it. Then I can agree. So it's kind of a case by case. But I would say whenever you learn a word for the first time, you've got to say it out loud. So this might be the only point of disagreement if I have understood his argument correctly. Maybe he means like don't try actual conversations with natives, like running before you can walk. Maybe, yeah, sure. I mean, of course, if you are too much of a beginner, you'll fail. But then again, you could also tell a native and tell them, hey, can I try and ask you, what's your name? 你叫什么名字? You could ask that, and then can you ask me, and then see if you understand me. It's still advantageous to try, so that if there needs to be a correction with your tones or your syllables, and then maybe they can ask you 你叫什么名字, and you can say 我叫 and say your name, or 我的名字是 sorry, I effed up the tone there. 我的名字是 whatever it is, or 我是意大利人 我住在北京 whatever you want to say. It's always good to speak. So that's the only point of disagreement I have with this gentleman. Otherwise, he's based.
Now, I know this flies in the face of conventional wisdom that says you need to start speaking from day one. Your brain needs to build strong recognition patterns before production becomes natural. And when you finally actually start speaking, you'll find that the words flow from your mouth a lot better than you expected, because these patterns have been cemented in your neurological pathways. And yes, while outputting the first time, it might feel a little slow and clunky, very rapidly, you're going to realize that there's no awkward translation, no struggling to recall grammar rules, just fluid communication.
Yeah, but the thing is, and as I say, yeah, I do actually disagree then with this point, because fluency is built not through absorption only. Fluency is built by muscle memory, and muscle memory is built by practice. So just like you can study and listen to the theory of going to the gym as much as you want, but the only way you actually learn to pick up the weight and lift it. And until you do that, you can know all the theory you want. You will be clunky. Your form will not be good. You can learn the form, but you need to actually do it and feel it. So again, maybe it also depends on the person. If it worked for him and his Mandarin is sensational, then fantastic. It worked for him. But for me, I started speaking immediately with any language that I ever picked up, while doing what he's saying. So I am still saying that his method is absolutely legit, correct, absolutely. I've done all of that with every language I've ever tackled, whether it be Japanese. You know how many anime I watched in Japanese, and I still remember words like shinzo mahi, shinzo hosa, words that I don't even need to know, which means heart attack, and is one, and the other one could be like a stroke. These I learned from an anime, Death Note. Okay, they stuck into my memory, great. But the idea of, I've always, even if I was watching an anime, then I would call a Japanese friend and I would tell them about it. I will tell them that, そうですね。たった今、面白いアニメを見ました。本当にすごかったんですよ。知ってますかこのアニメは? And then I would tell them about it. And the reason why it's effortless, I don't need to stop, is because I used it. Just all the time. To me, you have to speak every day if you want to learn a language. But that's just me.
After a few hundred hours of inputting Mandarin into my brain, I was shocked to find that my conversations were actually surprisingly smooth. The right phrases would kind of emerge naturally, and I actually had pretty decent pronunciation and tone for a non-native speaker. But please don't get me wrong, I was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I was significantly more comfortable and capable than I expected to be. When I look back at my language acquisition journey, I think the biggest breakthrough came when I stopped trying to force a language into my brain and instead allowing it to just enter naturally, and honestly, the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Literally. So there you have it. By working with your neurological wiring, you find out that things become remarkably easy and enjoyable instead of having to struggle and struggle and struggle. Now, you're gonna be surprised to hear that what I love most about this method isn't just that it works, it's that it transforms language learning from this annoying homework that's nagging you to do it to something that you really enjoy and look forward to.
Which is how it's supposed to be. 100%. That's how it has to be. Date Bayo, someone is speaking like Naruto there in chat. Yeah. No, he's correct. Like, language learning has to be fun. If it's not fun, it's not going to work. I would say that applies to any subject. You're not going to learn history. I mean, think about it. You all had that one teacher that made it so boring and you forgot everything immediately after the test. But then again, instead, maybe you relearned something like that, and because you learned it through a medium that you really liked, whether it be a YouTube channel, whether it be a video game, and now you know for a fact that you will never forget that 1066 is the Battle of Hastings with the Duchy of Normandy against the Anglo-Saxons. You'll never forget it. Why? Because you learned it in a fun way. So yeah, no, fun, 100% with him, 100% with him.
At maybe the end of your day. In this video, I have called strategic entertainment immersion isn't cutting corners. It's actually the most direct path to fluency in your target language. And hey, if you want a structured approach where you don't have to do any guesswork whatsoever and it's all taken out for you, then check the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, awesome. Anyways, I liked him. I'm happy that he's not, even if I may disagree with a few technical aspects of his language learning method, I will say that I'm happy that it's not one of those cases where you've got people that try to sell you something and